In the vast, cold emptiness of space, a small fleet of battered starships drifted silently. These were the last remnants of humanity, survivors of a catastrophic destruction that had erased Earth from existence 3,000 years ago. Admiral J. Park stood on the bridge of the flagship, his weathered hands gripping the command console, eyes fixed on the holographic star map. The ship hummed with a quiet desperation. Generations had passed since the Great Destruction, and only whispers of their home planet remained. Families had been reduced to stories, passed down through tight-knit communities living in these floating metal cities. Children grew up knowing nothing but the cold steel walls of their spacecraft, learning survival skills before they could walk. Jay remembered the old records. His grandmother had told him about Earth, a blue planet with green forests, vast oceans, and skies that changed color. Now, it was nothing more than cosmic dust obliterated by the Zorax Collective in a moment of unimaginable violence. The attack had been swift, brutal, and complete. The quantum communication network flickered to life. Dim lights blinked across the bridge connecting the scattered human settlements. Each colony was a small beacon of hope, isolated but not alone. They had discovered this network decades ago, a technological miracle that allowed them to share information, resources, and most importantly, survival strategies. HFY, the chief communication officer, noticed something unusual on her screen. A strange signal buried deep in the quantum frequencies. She called Jay over, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface. "Sir," she said quietly, "I think I've found something." The signal was unlike anything they had seen before. It carried fragments of data, coordinates, technological specifications, and what appeared to be a survival plan left behind by the last generation before Earth's destruction. It was a message of hope, carefully encrypted and hidden, waiting to be discovered. Young technicians gathered around, their faces a mix of excitement and fear. For generations, they had survived on limited resources, recycling everything, maintaining their aging fleet through incredible ingenuity. Each person knew their role was critical to humanity's survival. Mechanics worked alongside geneticists. Engineers collaborated with food production specialists. Every skill was crucial. Jay studied the signal. His mind raced with possibilities. Could this be a map to a new home? A weapon against their destroyers? Or simply the last testament of a dying civilization? The population of 50,000 humans watched and waited, their collective breath held in anticipation. Outside the ship's massive windows, stars continued their eternal dance. Distant nebulae painted the darkness with hints of purple and blue. The universe seemed both infinite and suffocating, a constant reminder of their tiny existence. A young crew member named Min approached Jay. "What do we do now?" he asked, his voice carrying the hope of an entire species. Jay placed a firm hand on the boy's shoulder, a gesture that spoke more than words. They would survive. They would remember. They would fight. The signal continued to pulse, a heartbeat of information promising something more. Humanity had been reduced to this, a handful of survivors, a few ships, and an unbreakable spirit. They carried the memories of billions, the technology of a lost civilization, and a burning desire to understand why they had been targeted. As the fleet adjusted its course, following the mysterious quantum signal, a sense of purpose filled the air. They were not just survivors. They were the keepers of humanity's legacy, waiting for their moment to strike back. The story of Earth was not over. It was just beginning to be written again. The research facility hummed with quiet intensity. Hai Kim stood before a massive holographic display, her fingers tracing complex molecular structures that seemed to dance and shift with each touch. Around her, a team of brilliant scientists worked in careful silence, their eyes focused on projects that could save or destroy humanity. Genetic enhancement had become their most critical research. The human body needed to adapt, to become something more than it had ever been before. Small laboratory chambers contained experimental subjects, volunteers who understood the risks but believed in the greater purpose. Each modification was a delicate balance between human potential and survival. In a sealed chamber, advanced quantum weapons took shape. These were not traditional weapons of destruction, but precision instruments designed to disrupt enemy technology at its most fundamental level. A young engineer named Wu carefully calibrated a device that could potentially disable entire alien communication networks with a single pulse. The resistance was more than just a military operation. It was a carefully constructed network of survivors, strategists, and individuals from various alien species who shared a common hatred for the Zorax Collective. They communicated through encrypted quantum channels, sharing information that would be invisible to their enemies. Chai discovered something extraordinary during a routine data analysis. Hidden within an old quantum frequency was a complex algorithm, a survival plan left behind by Earth's last scientists. It was like finding a map in the middle of an endless desert, a tiny spark of hope that could change everything. Genetic modifications began to show promising results. Humans were developing enhanced cognitive abilities, improved physical resilience, and an uncanny ability to process complex information. Some subjects could now perceive quantum frequencies that were previously undetectable. Others showed increased healing capabilities that seemed almost impossible. In a separate section of the facility, alien technology was being reverse-engineered. Fragments of Zorax equipment, carefully collected over generations, were slowly giving up their secrets. Each breakthrough was a victory, each understanding a weapon in their silent war of preparation. Wu approached Hai with a new discovery. "Look at this," he said, displaying a holographic representation of a quantum entanglement weapon. Unlike traditional weapons, this could strike without any physical movement, disrupting enemy systems at the speed of thought. The resistance was growing. Small groups of marginalized alien species began to join their cause. They shared stories of Zorax, oppression, of entire civilizations crushed under the collective's brutal regime. Each new ally brought unique technologies, unique perspectives on survival. Deep in the facility's most secure section, advanced AI systems worked continuously. They analyzed battle strategies, predicted potential scenarios, and developed countermeasures for every possible alien response. The AI was not just a tool, it was humanity's silent guardian. Psychological warfare became another critical strategy. They weren't just preparing to fight, they were preparing to destabilize the enemy from within. Carefully crafted information networks would spread doubt, confusion, and internal conflict among the Zorax leadership. Hai looked at the team around her. They were no longer just scientists or soldiers. They were the architects of humanity's revenge, the silent architects of a plan 3,000 years in the making. Every calculation, every modification, every secret weapon was a step towards reclaiming what was lost. The quantum communication network expanded, almost like a living organism. It connected isolated human colonies, shared critical research, and maintained the delicate hope that they might one day return home. Not to the Earth that was destroyed, but to a new home they would create. As night fell over the research facility, the work continued. Quiet conversations, the soft hum of advanced machinery, the occasional spark of a breakthrough. These were the sounds of humanity's preparation. They were no longer just survivors. They were becoming something more. The Zorax Collective had no idea what was coming. Humanity was preparing in silence, building a revolution that would shake the foundations of the galaxy. And when they were ready, nothing would stop them. The first strike came without warning. Commander Sung Lee watched the holographic display, her hands steady, eyes focused on the intricate dance of quantum weapon trajectories. Years of preparation had led to this moment, a precise, calculated attack that would change everything. Zorax communication networks suddenly went dark. Entire systems collapsed, their advanced technology rendered useless by invisible quantum pulses. It was like watching a complex machine suddenly stop, its intricate parts frozen in a moment of complete confusion. The targeted strikes were surgical. Instead of massive explosions, the attacks were silent, precise. Alien infrastructure crumbled from within. Communication lines dissolved and defense systems became nothing more than expensive metal sculptures. The human resistance had learned that true power wasn't about destruction, but about strategic dismantling. On a small research outpost near the Carina Nebula, a team of human operatives had infiltrated a critical Zorax communication hub. They moved like shadows, their enhanced abilities allowing them to bypass security systems that would have been impossible for previous generations. Each step was calculated, each movement purposeful. Wu, leading the tactical team, understood the psychological impact of their attacks. It wasn't just about destroying infrastructure, it was about creating fear. The Zorax had believed themselves invincible for thousands of years. Now they would learn what true vulnerability felt like. Quantum entanglement weapons worked in ways that defied traditional understanding. They could strike multiple targets simultaneously, creating a network of disruption that spread like a silent virus. Entire alien command centers found their systems corrupted, their most secure networks suddenly exposed. Reports came in from multiple star systems. Small human strike teams, supported by allied alien species, were systematically targeting key Zorax strategic points. Each attack was carefully planned, each movement a result of years of meticulous preparation. In the command center, Sung watched as holographic displays showed the progression of their attacks. Red markers indicated Zorax infrastructure points, slowly turning blue as each target was neutralized. It was like a complex game of chess, with entire star systems as the playing board. The psychological warfare was equally important. Intercepted. Communications showed growing panic among Zorax leadership. They had never experienced such a coordinated, precise attack. Their confidence was crumbling, their sense of superiority dissolving with each successful strike. Alien species that had been oppressed for generations began to see hope. The human resistance wasn't just fighting for themselves. They were fighting for every civilization that had suffered under Zorax rule. Small rebellions began to spark across multiple star systems, inspired by human strategic brilliance. Chiayi monitored the quantum communication network, coordinating attacks with surgical precision. Each team knew exactly when and where to strike, their movements synchronized across impossible distances. The technology they had developed was beyond anything the Zorax could comprehend. The first phase of attacks resulted in minimal human casualties, another testament to their strategic preparation. They had studied their enemy for generations, understanding every weakness, every potential point of failure. The Zorax had become complacent, and now they would pay the price. As the initial strikes concluded, a strange silence fell across affected star systems. It was the quiet before something much larger was about to happen. The human resistance had just sent a clear message. They were no longer victims. They were a force to be reckoned with. Commander Sung Lee allowed herself a small smile. Years of preparation, generations of survival had led to this moment. The revenge for Earth was not just about destruction. It was about reclaiming hope, about showing the universe that humanity would never be defeated. The first strikes were complete, but this was just the beginning of a much larger war. The rebellion exploded across the galaxy like a carefully orchestrated symphony of destruction. Commander Yun Kang stood on the bridge of the primary assault ship, watching as multiple star systems simultaneously rose against the Zorax collective. Alien species that had suffered under Zorax oppression for generations now joined the human-led uprising. Massive ships emerged from hidden locations, their weapons charged and ready. What had begun as a human resistance had transformed into a galactic revolution. Quantum communication networks lit up with synchronized attack coordinates. Planets that were once silent battlegrounds now became centers of intense conflict. The Zorax, who had believed themselves invincible, found themselves surrounded and overwhelmed. Wu's tactical teams moved with incredible precision. Enhanced human soldiers, their genetic modifications allowing superhuman capabilities, led strike forces across multiple fronts. They could process information faster, react more quickly, and understand complex battle strategies in milliseconds. The first major victory came near the Orion cluster. A critical Zorax military base, which had controlled dozens of star systems, fell within hours. The attack was so swift and coordinated that Zorak's leadership couldn't comprehend what was happening. Their communication networks collapsed. Their defense systems became useless. HFY's intelligence network played a crucial role. They had spent generations gathering information, understanding Zorak's weaknesses, and creating complex psychological warfare strategies. Each attack was not just a military operation, but a carefully planned psychological breakdown of the enemy's confidence. Alien species brought unique technologies to the rebellion. A reptilian race contributed advanced stealth capabilities. Another species shared energy manipulation techniques that could disrupt Zorak's shield systems. Humans became the strategic coordinators, turning these diverse technologies into a unified, fighting force. The psychological impact was devastating. Zorak's leadership began to fracture from within. Years of internal control and suppression meant they couldn't effectively respond to a multi-species coordinated attack. Their rigid hierarchical system became their greatest weakness. On captured, Zorak's communication channels, panic began to spread. Commanders who had never experienced defeat now faced total destruction. The human resistance had studied their enemy for generations, understanding every potential vulnerability. Yoon watched as holographic displays showed the rebellion's progression. What had started as a small human resistance was now a full-scale, galactic uprising. Entire star systems were being liberated, centuries of oppression being dismantled in weeks. The most surprising element was the speed of the rebellion. Humans had prepared for this moment for generations, developing technologies and strategies that the Zoraks could never anticipate. Each attack was precise, each movement calculated to maximum effect. Genetic enhancements played a critical role. Human soldiers could operate in environments that would kill normal biological entities. They could process complex battle information instantly, coordinate across impossible distances, and adapt to changing battlefield conditions in seconds. Small, strike teams began targeting critical Zorak's leadership centers. These weren't just military attacks, they were surgical removals of the enemy's command structure. Each successful mission further destabilized the Zorak's collective's ability to respond. The quantum weapons developed over generations proved to be game changers. They could disable entire planetary defense systems without firing a single traditional projectile. Information became the most powerful weapon, with human strategists controlling the battlefield through technological superiority. As the rebellion expanded, something remarkable happened. Species that had been enemies for centuries began to work together. The human resistance had become more than a military operation. It was a movement of galactic liberation. Commander Yun Kang allowed herself a moment of reflection. Generations of survivors carrying the memory of Earth's destruction had transformed into the most sophisticated fighting force the galaxy had ever seen. They were no longer just survivors. They were liberators. The Zorak's collective was crumbling, and humanity was just getting started. The final battle wasn't a single moment, but a series of calculated strikes that would determine the fate of entire civilizations. Jay Park, now the senior leader of the human resistance, stood on the bridge of the flagship, watching the ultimate confrontation unfold. Zorak's strongholds fell one by one. Their once impenetrable defense systems crumbled like ancient structures facing a powerful storm. The rebellion had become more than a military operation. It was a galactic cleansing, removing centuries of oppression and pain. Terraforming ships moved behind the assault fleets. These were not just weapons of war, but instruments of hope. As each Zorak system was liberated, human and allied alien technologies began transforming hostile planets into habitable worlds. Green landscapes started emerging where only barren rocks had existed before. The quantum weapon that would end the war was unlike anything seen before. Developed over generations, it didn't destroy. It fundamentally restructured. Communication. Networks, defense systems, entire planetary infrastructures could be rewritten with a single pulse. Chai Kim's intelligence teams had prepared for this moment. They didn't just want to defeat the Zoraks. They wanted to ensure they could never rise again. Every piece of technology was carefully analyzed, every potential threat neutralized. On the primary Zorak's homeworld, the final confrontation began. Human strike teams, supported by allied alien species, moved with unprecedented coordination. They weren't just soldiers. They were the children and grandchildren of survivors, carrying the memory of Earth's destruction. Wu's tactical strategies proved decisive. The attack wasn't about total destruction, but strategic dismantling. Critical infrastructure fell, leadership structures collapsed, and the once mighty Zorax collective found itself completely vulnerable. The psychological impact was profound. Zorax soldiers who had believed in their own superiority now faced complete defeat. Generations of oppression were being reversed in a matter of weeks. The tables had turned completely. Quantum communication networks became the primary battlefield. Information was more powerful than any weapon. Human strategists could predict and counter Zorax movements before they even happened. Their technological superiority was absolute. As the final battles concluded, something unexpected happened. The rebellion transformed into a galactic confederation. Species that had been enemies for centuries began working together, united by the human-led resistance's vision of shared freedom. Terraforming technologies turned hostile planets into new homes. Entire ecosystems were created, mimicking the lost beauty of Earth. Green landscapes, blue oceans, and breathable atmospheres emerged where only destruction had existed before. Jay understood this was more than a revenge mission. It was about creating a new future. The memory of Earth would live on, not through destruction, but through creation. Each new planet was a testament to human resilience and hope. The genetic modifications that had been developed during their long preparation now proved their true value. Humans could adapt to multiple environments, work seamlessly with different alien species, and rebuild civilizations with incredible efficiency. A new system of governance emerged. No longer would any single species dominate others. The lessons learned from Earth's destruction and humanity's long struggle would guide this new galactic confederation. Communication archives from Earth were carefully preserved. Museums were established on new colony worlds, ensuring that the history of their original home would never be forgotten. Each generation would know the story of humanity's survival and ultimate triumph. Hai looked at the holographic displays showing newly terraformed worlds. Where there had been destruction, now there was hope. Where there had been oppression, now there was freedom. The revenge for Earth had become something far more powerful, a new beginning. J. Park made a final announcement to the assembled fleet and allied species. "We are not just survivors," he said. "We are builders of a new future. The memory of Earth lives in each of us, in every world we create, in every life we protect." The Zorax collective was gone. Humanity had not just survived. They had reclaimed their destiny among the stars.